NFC Power Rankings for y'all today. Fired up to get into it. We did the AFC yesterday. We've got training camps getting kicked off around the league. We're going to count it down from 16 to 1. Really appreciate y'all tuning in. At 16 overall, I have to kick it off with the New York Giants. I have issues with the way this organization has been run the last couple years. Joe Shane, very nice guy, it seems like, based on Hard Knocks, but you decided that you're going to hitch your wagon to Daniel Jones instead of guys like Saquon Barkley and Xavier McKinney. I can't get on board with that. We have offensive line issues as well. I think that this roster, it's not ready. It's not ready. Certainly in some areas you could get excited. Like you could get excited about the defensive front. You have Dexter Lawrence and you brought in Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau. There's some things to get excited about there. Certainly there are. Offensive line questions, quarterback questions. That's too much for me to get in on the New York Giants this year. At 15, in the same division, the Washington Commanders, again, offensive line issues. I'm not a huge fan of Cliff Kingsbury. I've talked about that a lot. I think that for whatever reason, he keeps getting premium jobs in the NFL and college, and I'm just not sure why. I have not seen enough from him to get fired up about the potential there. I do like Jaden Daniels. However, I think they should have drafted Drake May at 2 overall. But Jaden Daniels can spin it. He's got receivers to throw the football to. He can run around the yard as well. Going to be one of the best rushers at the quarterback position in the NFL from day one. But I worry about his penchant for running into contact, and I worry about the offensive line being able to protect him from contact within the pocket. So I have issues there. And I think defensively, there are some nice pieces. Obviously, the interior of the defensive line looks incredible. But outside of that, I do have some question marks across the board on the defensive side of the ball for them. At 14, I have the Carolina Panthers. Bryce Young has to have a resurgent year 2. I think Dave Canales, who has done unbelievable work with Geno Smith and Baker Mayfield, is going to be able to get the most out of Bryce Young in year 2. They have added more talent. I think that they shored up the interior of the offensive line, which is huge for a smaller quarterback like Bryce Young. Not as much interior pressure. Hopefully they spread the ball out a little bit more with all these receivers that they have, and they're able to kind of let Bryce Young play point guard more like he did at Alabama. In that spread offense, spread system. We'll see how it plays out. I don't have a lot of confidence that they're going to be a super competitive team this year. Still view them at the bottom of the NFC with these other 2 football teams, but I at least appreciate the head coach and quarterback duo that they have in Carolina, and I think it's possible that they could be moving in the right direction, right? At 13, I have the Minnesota Vikings. I do think that they're moving in the right direction. They have a lot of talent across the board, but they're either going to have Sam Darnold in the lineup at quarterback or a rookie in J.J. McCarthy. And I think J.J. McCarthy landed in a great situation, but he still has a ways to go to become that franchise type quarterback. Has all the talent in the world, can spin the football, put velocity on it. He's a good athlete. He's a good leader, hard worker, but there's still some technical deficiencies, still some experience questions for J.J. McCarthy. And then if Sam Darnold is in the lineup, can they get the most out of Sam Darnold? Can he do well for them? Maybe. But it's hard for me to put them much higher based on their quarterback situation this year, even though I do love Brian Flores, what he can do on the defensive side of the ball. I think Kevin O'Connell's a very good head coach, but I just still have some question marks about the Minnesota Vikings moving into 2024. I like the long-term outlook outside of the fact that they gave up a ton of draft capital this year in order to move up for Dallas Turner. So we'll see how that plays out in Minnesota. New Orleans Saints, I do not like the long-term trajectory right now because you're looking at a team that still is just kind of standing pat with Derek Carr. I still think that, while Dennis Allen is a good defensive coordinator, I don't think he's a great head coach. I think that the offensive line is in shambles right now for the New Orleans Saints. Yes, the defense is still probably going to be very competitive, but overall, I look at the offense and I think there are some major, major problems. Despite loving Chris Olave, I don't see it happening for the New Orleans Saints this year. At number 11, I have the Arizona Cardinals, who improve upon the foundation that they laid in 2023 with this new coaching staff. I think that they're plucky on both sides of the ball. I love the combination of Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr. and Trey McBride. Your kind of big 3 at quarterback and with those receiving weapons. And then I look at what they've done with the offensive line and the running game. I think they're going to be able to play some smash mouth football with that line. They have big, powerful offensive linemen, two really tough runners behind them. So I think that the Arizona Cardinals have an identity and a direction moving forward, and I think they're going to be a well-coached team that has a quarterback and a good head coach. Tampa Bay Buccaneers coming at number 10. This is the range starting at 10 here where I'm looking at teams that really should be competing for the playoffs. And I think the Buccaneers should be absolutely not one of the stronger divisions in football, and a team that has a lot of talent. A lot of talent on the defensive front. I think that you look throughout the roster, there's just good blue chip players all over the board. The wide receivers are unbelievable still. Baker Mayfield had a big time year. They do lose Dave Canales to the division rival, Carolina Panthers. We'll see what Liam Cohen can do with Baker Mayfield, who he has worked with before in the past. But Buccaneers, I just think are going to be a little bit on the outside looking in this year in the playoff picture. Could certainly make it, but this is how I feel about it right now. At number 9, this might come as a surprise to some folks. I have the Dallas Cowboys sitting at number 9. I don't believe in the direction of the organization. They just want to seemingly play hardball with all their players on contract situations. I think that they lost a lot of talent this offseason. They didn't do a good job replenishing it. Yes, you can be a draft and develop team. That's what they have been. But you've got to be able to supplement at times through free agency, and they're just choosing not to do that right now, in my opinion. They lost their defensive coordinator. They lost their offensive coordinator the year before that. So I think losing coordinators in back-to-back years, it's going to end up coming back to bite them, along with the fact that they're playing hardball in a lot of contract situations. I think Dak Prescott, if I was him, I'd be ready to move on and go play for a football team that values me. That's how I look at the Dallas Cowboys. Could they make the playoffs? Yes. Will they make noise in the playoffs? Probably not. At number 8, I have the Atlanta Falcons, another team I think could definitely be pushing for the playoffs. I think it's going to be between them and the Buccaneers for the NFC South. Kirk Cousins, how healthy is he after the Achilles? That's the ultimate question, because I think you look at the offensive skill position players, you get fired up about Bijan Robinson, you get fired up about Kyle Pitts. They have a good offensive line. You also have Drake London, who's one of the better young receivers in football. A defense that showed a lot of improvement last year under Ryan Nielsen, who's now in Jacksonville. They bring in Raheem Morris, so it's going to be interesting to see kind of how the defense shakes out there in Atlanta this upcoming season. But I do think they have a lot of nice pieces. Maybe not the best talent defensively in the world, but you have some really, really good pieces in the secondary across the board. So I think that the Falcons will be a team that are right there competing for the playoffs this year. At number 7, I have the Seattle Seahawks. This is the playoff cutoff line. I ultimately think the Seahawks are able to edge out a couple of the teams that we've talked about because I like their direction, bringing in Mike McDonald as head coach. I think that he is just a smart, good leader. I like bringing in Ryan Grubb as the offensive coordinator from Washington to pair with Geno Smith and all the skill position talent that they have. I think the offensive line is going to be just fine with some better health in 2024. So I like the Seahawks direction, right? They have 3 great receivers, in my opinion, really good running backs. And Geno Smith is maybe the best deep ball thrower in the NFL right now. At number 6, maybe another surprise for some folks, Chicago Bears. I think that they finally have the quarterback in Chicago. I thought Justin Fields would be that. I don't think he was given the best support throughout his time there, but Caleb Williams now does have the support that I think you can get excited about. This defense played really well down the stretch last year. You've got 3 big-time receivers. You've got running backs. You've got a tight end that you can feel good about, and an offensive line that I think it's a little underrated. I think the offensive line is not elite, but certainly above average in Chicago. I think they're going to do a good job. At number 5, I have the Los Angeles Rams. When they've been healthy the last few years, they've been a very good football team. Yes, you lose Aaron Donald, but you bring in 2 kids from Florida State that can absolutely get after it. Braden Fisk, Jared Verse up front. Kobe Turner's still there. I think that you're going to see steps forward from some of their young guys going into the 2024 campaign. I think they did a good job rebuilding the secondary to an extent. You have Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, Matthew Stafford, one of the best quarterbacks in the league, and Sean McVay is, right up there at the top of the league in terms of coaching. So I think that the Rams are going to be a playoff football team. I think the Philadelphia Eagles will be a playoff football team as well. At number 4 overall, I have the Eagles. So much talent on that roster. So much talent. It's an all-star team in a lot of ways. And you bring in Kellen Moore. You bring in Vic Fangio. I think there's just going to be more professional coordinating on both sides of the ball. I'm still not a huge fan of Nick Sirianni and the way he handles himself, but I think the Eagles have too much talent and good enough coaching on both sides of the ball that they're going to be right back in the playoff picture, competing, to maybe win the NFC. I think that they'll at least be a divisional round team, and maybe more than that. We'll see. At number 3, Detroit Lions. They did make the conference championship last year. They barely fell to the 49ers after having a pretty nice lead early on in that football game. They fell apart a little bit. Some unfortunate luck certainly had to do with that. But I just don't quite have them as high as the top 2 teams because as much as I love Jared Goff and the situation he has with Ben Johnson, that offensive line is so dang good. And some of the skill position talent, I like the defensive additions they had in the secondary, especially. DJ Reader was a big pickup, but he struggled to stay healthy for a good chunk of the last couple of years. We'll see how that ends up playing out. But if DJ Reader and Aleem McNeil are playing together on that defensive line with Aiden Hutchinson, Marcus Davenport, another guy who's dealt with injuries throughout his career, there's certainly enough talent for the Lions to make it back to the conference championship game. I think the team that stands in their way of making it back, though, is their own division rival, the Green Bay Packers, who we have not talked about yet. Have them at number 2 overall. I think Jordan Love's creation capacity is just so much greater than Jared Goff's. I think that he can be more of a playmaker, a guy that elevates the football team around him, and they have so many young receivers that are talented, very good young tight ends, good running back room, bringing in Josh Jacobs, and obviously they draft the kid out of USC who is very explosive at the running back position. Offensive line, very talented. I think bringing in Jeff Hafley is going to make a difference on the defensive side of the ball for this team. He's going to be more aggressive. He's going to utilize the talent that this team has on the defensive side of the ball. And there's a lot of talent out there for the Green Bay Packers. I mentioned the Giants losing Xavier McKinney. That is one of the more underrated moves of the offseason, the Packers acquiring Xavier McKinney. They have a lot of talent up front and throughout this defensive roster. I think the Green Bay Packers are the second best team in the NFC, which of course leaves the San Francisco 49ers, keeping it chalky. They do have some contract situations that they're dealing with, but I think they'll be able to navigate it. And ultimately, Kyle Shanahan, designing things on the defensive side of the offensive side of the ball, has been just an unbelievable recipe for success. I think Brock Purdy really does do a lot more than given credit for. I think he elevates that football team. I've been talking about it for the last couple years. I don't think he's an elite quarterback at this point in his career, but I do think that he's one of the better quarterbacks that you can win with. I think you can almost win because of Brock Purdy. Certainly if you take him out of the situation with Kyle Shanahan and all the offensive talent, yeah, maybe we could talk about that and have that conversation. But he is in this situation, and I think he elevates the situation around him with all the talent they do have. As I mentioned, Christian McCaffrey, maybe the best running back in the league, maybe the best group of receivers in the league with Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, who is still there and reporting, George Kittle. You bring in Ricky Pearsall in round 1. I love the addition of Dominic Pooney at tackle, guard, wherever you want to play him, out of Kansas. And then on the defensive side of the ball, bringing in Renardo Green in the draft was awesome for them. Ultimately, though, whether or not they're able to win the Super Bowl, it's going to come down to a lot of things. But I think if they're able to get Dre Greenlaw back healthy at some point in the playoffs, whenever it may be, that's going to be the biggest thing for them, because as much as you like a Devondre Campbell and some of the other guys they have, and Fred Warner, maybe the best linebacker in the league, I think Dre Greenlaw, when he left that football game against the Kansas City Chiefs, things changed quite a bit. So I think you're going to need him back. But I still have the 49ers on the top of the NFC. I think that they're going to punch their ticket to the Super Bowl again and play the Kansas City Chiefs once again. Super Bowl rematch for the Kansas City Chiefs and the San Francisco 49ers in 2024 is my expectation at this point. I think both teams did a good job retooling, revamping, and regrouping after what was a great season for both squads. We'll see how it plays out. Would love to know what y'all think. Drop your thoughts in the comment section below. If you enjoy the content, please like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Y'all have a good one.